It all kicks off in an Eastern European country that's completely wrecked and in ruins. Right in the middle of the rubble, a badly roughed-up guy stays seated while gripping his piece. Leaking heavily from some serious puncture wounds, he can barely keep his hands steady. A little girl approaches holding tight to a stuffed bunny, begging her uncle not to pass away. He tells her to make a run for it. The kid hesitates, frozen in place and totally terrified of the whole situation. Running out of patience, the shooter tells her to scram immediately, warning she'll be finished too if she sticks around. Spooked by the scolding, the kid turns around and starts booking it. She keeps running frantically, trying to get as far away from the danger as possible. While the girl dashes through the alleys, the injured guy stays propped up against the crumbled wall. Suddenly, he senses someone approaching and turns his head on high alert. Heavy footsteps echo, breaking the absolute silence of the area. A dude in a trench coat casually strolls in his direction. Accompanied by several armed guards, the silver-haired guy steps up, heavily protected. Recognizing his target, the leader calls the shooter by his name, Nightshade. Totally impressed, he mentions that the enemy really lives up to the rumors of being an absolute beast. Looking around, the silver-haired dude is amazed that he caused all this wreckage single-handedly. The surrounding scenery is littered with the bodies of guards who got taken out during the clash. Buildings are still blazing in the background, showing the sheer scale of the city's destruction. Nightshade hears from his rival that someone of his caliber would never choose to bite the dust just out of pure sentimentality. Cocking his piece, the leader asks if the defeated man has any last words. The battered shooter just stares back with a totally mocking glare. Giving a thumbs down, the MC accepts his own end with his head held high. Without missing a beat, he lets him know they'll be seeing each other in the underworld. A loud blast echoes through the alley, leaving a massive mess behind. 17 years later, in a hideout, a guy yells his lungs out, thinking he's being played for a fool. The big bald dude asks if the kid seriously thinks he can back out of the gig now. Pinned against the wall, the young guy tries to explain himself, saying they promised him a simple driving gig. Smoking a cigarette, another crook confirms the job is exactly that driving and wants to know what the big deal is. Freaking out, the kid swears that this isn't a normal gig. Tearing up, he whines about having to pick up an operative right in the middle of an active crime scene. Annoyed by the crying, the bald guy smashes a golf club so hard he cracks the floor. The thugs explain that they are transporters and will move literally anything if the price is right. Knife in hand, the goon warns that he'll have to put the kid to sleep if he keeps complaining. Someone interrupts the threat by placing a firm hand on the armed guy's shoulder. Startled by the interruption, the thug turns his head, totally confused. A young guy in a baseball cap tells everyone to chill and offers to take the mission solo. Still held by the big guy, the scared kid begs his buddy K not to get mixed up in this. K calms his friend down, guaranteeing that a pro hitman wouldn't just go around flatlining random people for no reason. Night falls over the massive, neon-lit skyscrapers of the big city. In a super fancy hallway, a mob boss gets his ticket punched by a flawless headshot. The security details start panicking, screaming that it's an ambush while pulling out their hardware. Another goon tries to shield his boss but ends up catching one right between the eyes. The rest of the squad is shell-shocked seeing their buddies drop so fast. In utter disbelief, one of the suits notices the holes in the wooden door right behind him. Terrified, he realizes the wall couldn't even slow down a heavy-caliber round. The guy in the trench coat violently kicks the door down, crashing the office party. Wielding a silenced piece, the silver-haired operative makes a grand, intimidating entrance. Quickly, the mob boss barks at his crew not to underestimate the intruder. The shooter flips a round table to take cover from the absolute hail of lead. The bodyguards fire wildly in his direction, desperately trying to tag their target. Using the cover, the operative fires back with pinpoint accuracy, taking out two guys at once. Another goon drops, while the last survivor can't even fathom how the enemy is aiming so well. Pointing his tool at the victim, the silver-haired dude mocks him, saying the rotten stench of a mobster is way too easy to track. With the job done, the pro calmly puts his hardware away right in the middle of the trashed room. He reloads, grabbing fresh clips that were chilling in an ice bucket. The office floor has turned into a total sea of roughed-up bodies. The getaway driver, K, shows up at the door, taking in the aftermath of the cleanup. Startled, the kid throws his hands up in surrender when the silver-haired guy points his piece at him. Shaking in his boots, K tries to explain he was just hired to handle the transport. The operative lowers his guard and asks if he's the driver sent by his partner. Relieved he didn't just catch a stray, the kid tips his cap and confirms the pickup. The two peel out in a car, cruising down the city's massive avenue late at night. The ride speeds through the streets under the moonlight. Kay stays hyper-focused on the road while his passenger takes a breather in the backseat. Through the rearview mirror, the driver takes a curious peek at the pro. The guy catches the stare and asks what the problem is, making the kid super nervous. Trying to play off the scare, Kay mentions that a real pro gives off a seriously intense vibe. The operative ignores the compliment and just keeps staring blankly at the front seat. Hesitant, the driver asks for permission to clear up a quick question about the gig. Met with silence, Kay mentions he passed through the first floor when he entered the building. Remembering the bodies on the floor, he asks if the women and kids were also targets for this mission. The silver-haired guy denies it, but coldly explains he just eliminated them to keep them from making a scene. Kay listens, totally shocked, to the excuse that the cleaners would handle everything anyway, so flatlining a few extras was no big deal. Gulping hard, the driver lets out a nervous chuckle, realizing his partner is way worse than the rumors said. Mentally calling the guy by his nickname, Funerary Flowers, Kay is absolutely sure he's sitting with a heartless monster. Keeping the chat going, Kay asks how the shooter knows that name, mentioning he heard about it from their boss. In the Western underworld, elite operatives get flower code names, and sending the funerary flowers is basically a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Annoyed by the question, the silver-haired dude mutters that this punk shouldn't be running his mouth about things above his pay grade. But the kid keeps pushing, suggesting the scar on the passenger's face must have come from a knife or something similar. The operative just listens in silence, taking note of the driver's sheer audacity. Looking thoughtful, the young guy says there must be someone out there capable of actually scratching one of the great funerary flowers. The pro stays quiet in the back, just soaking in the kid's words. Through the mirror, Kay's eyes go dark while he stays laser-focused on the road. Touching his own scar, the silver-haired guy remembers a man who was once called Belladonna. That plant is also known as nightshade and packs a ridiculously powerful neurotoxin. In flower language, it means the gift of the end, and that guy was basically the Grim Reaper himself. He thinks the guy was foolish enough to defy the entire organization's orders all over some brat. Thanks to that, the old rival ended up taking a massive L, totally roughed up in that dark alley. Snapping back to the present, Kay flashes a smirk and mentions that the silver-haired guy ended up taking out the Reaper with his own hands. Out of patience for the chit-chat, the operative points his piece at the driver and asks if that little story is good enough for his tombstone. Faking a panic attack, the kid starts sweating and asks what the passenger is talking about. Showing zero mercy, the silver-haired dude clicks the safety off, ready to give him a permanent haircut. The pro praises his driving skills, stating that the anti-hijacking maneuver was way too slick for a simple thug. Plus, he notices the driver isn't actually scared, because people in true panic sweat in a very specific way. The operative explains that panic sweat has a totally awful stench. Since he's not picking up that odor from the front seat, he knows the kid is perfectly calm even with a barrel pointed at him. Pressing the hardware forward, the mobster demands to know who the young guy really is. Seizing the moment, Kay violently jerks the steering wheel with all his might in one go. Caught totally off guard by the sharp turn, the silver-haired guy loses his balance completely in the back. The ride shakes violently, drifting across the asphalt at top speed. Wasting zero time, the driver slams on the brakes, locking the wheels. As the car spins completely out of control, the operative screams in fury, asking what the heck this punk is doing. In the rearview, the kid reveals a dark, hyper-focused glare right in the middle of the chaotic crash. The silver-haired guy's eyes go wide as he realizes the impact is totally unavoidable. With a deafening crunch, the vehicle slams full force into the highway's metal guardrail. Thanks to the brutal impact, the shooter gets launched right out of the flipped ride. Sliding across the pavement, he manages to catch his balance and lands in a crouch. Furious about the setup, the silver-haired guy looks up, locking eyes with his enemy. Cutting through the smoke of the wreck, Kay leaps right at him, launching a lightning-fast assault. The kid shows off his glowing red eyes and wields a blade with an absolutely ruthless stance. Quickly, the mobster raises his heavy piece to blast the attacker out of midair. A superfast slash cuts the wind before the trigger even gets pulled. With a flawless strike, the driver clips the side of the weapon, knocking the aim totally off. Ticked off by the rush, the pro clicks his tongue and steps back so he doesn't get sliced. The metal frame of his piece ends up taking the direct hit from the blade. Chunks of the hardware hit the floor, leaving the silver-haired dude shocked at the damage. Standing there cool as a cucumber, Kay drops some knowledge. The Desert Eagle is finicky and its side is super weak to impacts. The kid adds that it's the absolute perfect sweet spot to jam the whole mechanism. The mobster realizes the enemy targeted the gun's inner workings with ridiculous precision in just a fraction of a second. Stripped of his main defense, the silver-haired guy grits his teeth, absolutely seething with rage. Telling the brat to wipe that smirk off his face, the pro charges in, throwing the busted gun as a distraction. Pulling a curved blade from his sleeve, the silver-haired guy preps a lethal close-range strike. Keeping his cool, Kei just uses his bare hands to parry the stab without breaking a sweat. The two lock into an intense hand-to-hand brawl, with the kid perfectly defending every speedy thrust. The mobster feels a nasty shock in his arm and realizes in pure panic that his nerves just got sliced. Exploiting the opening, the MC lands a clean, direct punch right to the guy's face. Keeping the combo going, he brutally strikes the enemy's neck area. Giving him zero room to breathe, the kid closes the gap and delivers a savage knee straight to the guy's gut. To wrap it up, Kei brings his fist down with max power, smashing the mobster right into the highway pavement. Spitting up a ton of red, the defeated guy realizes that wasn't just some standard physical beatdown. He figures out, completely terrified, that with every single hit, his nerves were literally being corroded. The devastating effect on the body is a 1-to-1 match for the legendary belladonna toxin. The MC glares at the fallen enemy, giving off a dark, demonic vibe under the moonlight. Even pinned to the ground, the operative scoffs, calling the kid a weird smell fetishist and demanding to know who he really is. Suddenly, the silver-haired guy's eyes bulge out in pure shock as he puts the pieces together and remembers that cursed old codename. The MC smirks, asking if the enemy finally caught on, mentioning it's been a hot minute. Sweating bullets from the nerves, the silver-haired guy mumbles in disbelief that it's completely impossible. With a totally sadistic grin, Kei claps back, saying the guy talks an awful lot for someone who played it like a total coward. He points out that his rival only showed up to land the finishing blow when he was already checking out in that alley. The mobster insists it's garbage and that the Reaper should have flatlined right there, but the kid calmly agrees that he did, in fact, expire. With his eyes glowing intensely, he lets him know that for some totally unexplainable reason, he just happened to respawn. The defeated guy is left completely speechless listening to this crazy resurrection story. Seeing his knife tossed on the asphalt, the silver-haired guy refuses to buy into something so ridiculous. Walking at a snail's pace, the MC approaches the dropped blade. With a light kick, he pops the weapon into the air and catches it effortlessly with the same hand. The operative asks if this whole insane stunt is just for payback, and Kei replies that payback actually doesn't sound half bad. Right then, the memory of that lost little girl's stuffed bunny flashes in his mind. With an ice-cold, determined look, the kid reveals that he actually has something he needs to take back. To pull that off, he declares he's going to burn the organization's grand garden straight to the ground. Overcome with rage, the silver-haired guy yells that wiping out the entire guild is a pipe dream he'll never pull off. Kei just drops the info that nowadays there are more funerary flowers, and some are even way stronger than he ever was. Catching a brutal slash to the neck, the mobster tries to warn him that the kid won't change a darn thing going solo. Tuning him out completely, the MC finishes the job, taking the enemy's head clean off and painting the highway red. As the silver-haired guy drops lifeless to the ground, the dust and the mess settle on the wrecked pavement. Staring at the body, he tells the punk to enjoy the front row seat to the show straight from the underworld. Somewhere else, in a super fancy boardroom, a bunch of big shots are chilling around a massive table. A sharp-dressed leader leans back in his chair, calmly calling out the name Dahlia. With a smooth voice, he drops the news that their colleague just got permanently retired. The blonde woman just sits in total silence, processing the heavy update. Turning his head, the boss asks if she remembers exactly who was responsible for that old mess. He explains the guy who just got iced was the exact same dude who took out her benefactor back during the Civil War. Hearing that, the woman flashes back to her dark past sitting in the rubble. Trying to piece it together, the leader wonders if the hit was pulled by the Japanese cops or if the US decided to crash the party. Deep in thought, he also toys with the idea that it might have been a totally unexpected third party. Tapping his fingers on the table, the guy concludes that the vibe in their new Japanese garden is getting super complicated. The boss states that some really annoying weeds have started sprouting up in their turf. To nip it in the bud, he orders Dahlia to alert the funerary flowers to rip this problem out by the roots. Walking down a bustling street, the man sets a hard deadline. The job needs to be wrapped up in exactly 1 month. Meanwhile, Kei is reflecting on how he literally spent his entire life in the middle of a wrecked battlefield. Sitting alone in the debris, the kid remembers he never even got the chance to meet his folks. He was just another textbook war orphan with zero future ahead of him. But the whole game changed when a mysterious guy suddenly walked out of the smoke. Holding a piece, the suit told the kid to choose between checking out right there like a useless stray dog, or picking up the tool and starting to clear out bodies just to stay alive. Not entirely grasping the heavy weight of the question, the child just grabbed the heavy hardware. Racking the slide with purpose, Kay decided he definitely preferred to keep breathing. Without batting an eye, he pulled the trigger, blasting the target with zero mercy. Back in boot camp, the instructor would scream at him never to hesitate, warning that slipping up meant getting unalived. Sprinting through the shooting range, the young guy had it drilled into his head to never, ever stop moving. Amidst all the crossfire, the kid figured out that the funerary flowers weren't just your run-of-the-mill syndicate. They genuinely believed in the grand cause of keeping world order intact, no matter the cost. The crew kept tabs on the whole globe, secretly scrubbing out major threats. Their main targets were the dictators who were rotting the world from the inside out. Dangerous kingpins and extremists were also constantly on the permanent VIP hit list. Because of this, their hits stopped entire wars and acted as a necessary evil to save thousands of innocent lives. The MC always executed his gigs with lightning speed and fatal precision. Functioning like a literal machine, he just followed orders in the name of the grand cause. Down a pitch-black alley, the operative remembers the exact moment his life went sideways while goons hunted a traitor. Panting and badly injured, the MC tried to keep himself upright in the dark. The little girl notices her savior is sweating bullets, while he thinks about how he just betrayed his own crew after 20 years. Kay realizes he breathed in some nasty toxic gas and his nervous system is fried. He knows he doesn't have much time left. With his hands shaking uncontrollably, the pro accepts that it's game over for him. Handing an envelope to the kid, he tells her to head to a safe house where a transporter will pick her up. He warns her she has to run solo to start a new life, secretly questioning why he pulled such a crazy stunt to begin with. Gripping the paper tight, the kid just stands there quietly, trying to process the goodbye. Overwhelmed with sadness, the little girl crunches up the envelope in total frustration. Tugging on the operative's coat, she makes it crystal clear she is absolutely not leaving without him. Packed with determination, the girl demands to know exactly what she has to do to save him. Watching the kid's sheer guts, Kay realizes it was exactly that kind of reckless attitude. That totally unwavering stance was what finally broke the perfect gears of his robotic life. A while later, the sun comes up, shining on a tiny abandoned building out in the middle of nowhere. Sitting on the floor surrounded by empty tiny bottles, the MC bounces back thanks to some atropine sulfate. That specific antidote for toxic gas could only be scavenged in tiny drops from regular eye drops. Opening his eyes, he admits he had one foot in the grave, and there was zero chance he could have hoarded all those bottles by himself. Super relieved to see his color returning, the little girl comes sprinting into the hideout. Checking out her filthy shoes, the pro realizes the kid risked everything slipping right through enemy lines. Trying to chill her savior out, the girl promises there's nobody else creeping around the area. Shocked by her guts, Kay asks if she doesn't regret tossing her one chance to escape out the window. Fearless, she refuses to run away alone and asks him to stay as her permanent bodyguard from now on. Annoyed by the request, the guy doubles down that he's just a cleaner and isn't cut out to play family with anyone. Bummed out by the rejection, the girl looks totally crushed, while he reflects that his old self would never have let this fly. But patting her on the head, Kay admits he could never live with himself owing his life to a literal child. Looking the girl right in the eyes, the shooter decides to lock in one final promise. He swears he'll watch her back until she gets her freedom, officially retiring from his life as a hitman. Super hyped, the kid agrees to the first legit deal she's ever made. Suddenly, the bedroom door gets kicked wide open as a girl yells at her idiot brother to wake up. The jump scare sends the MC flying out of bed, face planting hard on the floor. Rubbing his head, he groans sleepily, reminding himself that it's already been 17 whole years since he officially flatlined. Young Misaki screams that he's gonna be late for school, snapping Kay right back to his current bizarre reality. Complaining about how he sleeps like a rock, she waits impatiently while the guy promises to get ready in a flash. Now on his feet, the MC thinks about his wild new life playing the role of an average high schooler. Staring her brother down, Misaki mentions suspiciously that he's been acting super weird lately. She points out he came home super late last night and his clothes reeked of heavy smoke. Sweating bullets, Kay mentally recalls that he had to torch that flipped car to scrub the evidence. Sounding like a threat, the girl asks if he's miraculously getting mixed up with shady people again. Trying to play it cool, Kay lets out a nervous laugh and makes up a story about just chilling at a buddy's barbecue late into the night. The girl finds it totally sus since he used to hate veggies, but the young guy claims his taste buds flipped after he bumped his head. Internally, he theorizes that the brain's reward center got scrambled, shifting his actual preferences. The siblings just stand there in awkward silence for a second. Brushing it off, Misaki tells him to hurry up and get downstairs, warning him that Mom said breakfast is getting cold. The second the door clicks shut, Kay lets out a massive sigh of relief and mutters to himself about how sharp his sister is. Pacing around the room, he thinks about how, up until now, he's managed to pull off a perfectly average daily routine. Staring at a framed family picture, the kid admits that deep down, this whole setup still feels like a fever dream. The young guy wonders why his consciousness, which totally expired 17 years, ago ended up hijacking this exact body. Gently, he touches the photo of his new family sitting on the dresser. Kay is absolutely positive he didn't just body snatch the guy, since all the original owner's memories and feelings are still fully intact inside him. Thinking about the trigger, he knows he took a tumble down the stairs 10 days ago, but everything right before and after is a complete blank. He wonders if the knock to the head is what booted up his past life memories, admitting the whole thing is incredibly unscientific. Suddenly, a beep from the computer grabs the kid's attention. Sitting down in front of the monitor, Kay decides to put the sci-fi mystery on ice because he's got way bigger fish to fry right now. With a dead serious look, he settles into the chair and glares at the screen. Slipping his headphones on, the kid hears a voice confirming that the file decryption is totally done. On the other end of the line, a mystery contact complains that cracking that code was a colossal headache. Playing it cool, Kay mentions that was the data chip he lifted straight off Dahlia. The scene flashes back to the moment the operative cleared the room in that swanky office. Right near the messy casualty, the eliminated mob boss hand was clutching an antique silver pocket watch. That shiny little trinket was hiding a major secret inside its gears. When popped open, the watch revealed a tiny data chip tucked right into the mechanism. Satisfied, the MC praises his buddy's speed, noting it was totally worth digging up his old underworld contacts. The ally confesses he nearly had a heart attack getting a text from him last week after he'd been off the grid for over a decade. He admits he seriously doubted if he was actually chatting with the legendary Nightshade, but after Dahlia got retired, he knew for sure. With zero patience for small talk, the young guy demands the analysis results before he answers a single question. The contact brings up the fact that 17 years ago, the pro openly defied an order to wipe out a family and supposedly bit the dust because of it. Super curious, the hacker wants to know how a ghost like him is still breathing, and why he's suddenly picking a fight with the organization again. Cutting right to the chase, he asks if this whole revenge tour is all because of that girl named Lilia. A flashback shows tiny Lilia getting dragged away by a suit, leaving her stuffed bunny behind after her hero allegedly expired. The ally drops the bomb that the Grand Garden snatched the kid to use her as a literal political pawn. For the past 17 years, the girl has been locked up like a bird in a cage, acting as their shiny poster child. With absolutely zero freedom, she lives her life entirely trapped behind the curtain of this shady world. The contact mentions the nasty rumors that the young woman is treated like absolute garbage by the guild's top brass. Bringing up the past, the ally asks if the endgame of all this clearing out is to break the girl out of the garden's grip. Listening to the tragic lore, Kay's eyes darken slightly through the glow of the monitor. The image of that little girl smiling so brightly, with just a piece of bread, flashes back in his mind. Ice cold, the MC tells the informant he doesn't need to know the motives of a literal killing machine. Shutting it down, he reminds him of the golden rule between them: never ask questions you don't want the answers to. The mystery contact goes silent for a sec, just eating the rude remark. Clicking his mouse, the hacker just sighs and mutters that the operative is as insanely stubborn as ever. A chime alerts them that the file transfer has finally wrapped up. The screen pops up a photo of a dark-haired student with a dead serious glare. Locked in, Kay reads the intel and discovers the name of the next mark Dahlia was planning to erase. The next day, the busy routine rolls on at an elite all-girls academy. Students stroll casually through the school gates, chatting and laughing it up. The girl from the file walks across the courtyard totally solo, turning heads everywhere she goes. A few classmates wave super friendly, saying bye and calling the girl Shido. Turning her head elegantly, she wishes them all a good morning with a very polite, reserved smile. The second she turns her back, the group of girls totally swoons over her flawless posture. The students whisper in the corners, completely mesmerized by how pretty she is. From a distance, Kay monitors the whole scene on his phone, flying under the radar with a low-key baseball cap. His screen shows the full dossier, locking in the target's identity as Akari Shido. The file reveals that this student is the only daughter of the absolute biggest Yakuza syndicate in all of Japan. The MC assesses the board, confirming that the mafia heiress is the #1 target the garden wants to scrub. Thinking it over, he knows that right now, he's just an average high schooler going toe-to-toe with a global hitman syndicate. This enemy group has an absolutely ridiculous amount of pull in the politics and economies of dozens of countries. On top of that, the guild is packing an entire army of operatives with downright superhuman skills. Staring at the girl's photo, Kay is fully aware he can't just brawl with these monsters empty-handed. To hit his endgame, he plans to leverage this heiress's massive target on her back to gain the upper hand. With a totally menacing glare, the MC decides to use this setup as the foundation to burn the garden straight to ashes. Keeping a safe distance, Kay tails the girl through the upscale residential neighborhood. The kid instantly spots a bodyguard in a suit shadowing the girl way too closely. Hiding out, he snarks to himself that playing babysitter for a Yakuza boss's kid every single day must be exhausting. In an empty alley, the security guard blocks the path, and Kay greets him with pure sarcasm. Cracking his knuckles, the suit complains about the flies buzzing around his boss and warns him that this isn't a world for kids to play in. The man glares at the young guy with absolute disgust, calling him a brat who's probably never even held a real peace in his life. Smiling darkly, the MC thanks him for the super-friendly advice. The two keep their distance in the middle of the street while the vibe gets incredibly tense. Without dropping his cool, Kay announces he's about to make his grand comeback debut in this violent underworld. The bodyguard shifts into a fighting stance, demanding to know who the trespasser works for and why he's stalking the young miss. Casually, the young guy raises his fist and mentions he wasn't exactly hunting the girl down. Furious at the smart mouth, the suit warns that he doesn't even need the truth right now, because he's gonna beat it out of him anyway. Capitalizing on the opening, Kay lands a savage punch right on the guy's face, sending him flying before he can even blink. Analyzing his opponent's form up close, Kay instantly clocks that the suit is a trained boxer. Seeing red after getting clocked, the bodyguard charges in screaming, throwing everything he has at the kid to pay him back. He curses the brat out mid-charge while winding up for a massive haymaker. The suit throws a blazing fast punch, but the MC simply dodges it like it's absolutely nothing. Seizing the gap in the attack, the young guy grabs the enemy's wrist with an iron grip. Giving him zero time to defend, Kay yanks the guard's arm, completely shattering his stance. Totally shell-shocked, the man realizes a second too late that he just got totally outplayed. With lightning speed, the MC delivers a flawless strike right to the opponent's neck. The hit is so brutal that the bodyguard drops like a sack of potatoes in the alley, letting out a groan of pain. Looking down at the grounded guy, the kid tells him to chill out, calmly letting him know he isn't the real enemy here. Still seeing stars on the pavement, the suit stays quiet, trying to process how he got folded so fast. Suddenly, young Akari shows up down the street, demanding from afar that they knock off the brawl immediately. Seeing the girl walk up, the grounded bodyguard mutters his boss's title, looking incredibly worried. She marches right up to the two in the alley without showing even an ounce of fear. Staring the kid down, Akari admits she doesn't know who he is, but demands he let go of Katajiri this second. Impressed by her absolute boss energy, Kay notes to himself that the Yakuza heiress has some serious guts. He agrees to let the guy go, but only on the condition that the student listens to everything he has to say. Keeping the guard pinned to the floor, the kid casually invites her out for tea, leaving the suit fuming at the sheer audacity. Keeping her cool despite the heavy tension, the young woman closes her eyes and thinks it over for a split second. Turning her back, she simply tells the MC to follow her without asking another single question. A short walk later, the squad arrives smoothly at a much quieter, totally empty street. They slide into a very low-key coffee shop sitting right there on the corner. Once seated, Kay praises the spot, but snarks that it doesn't exactly scream filthy rich heiress vibes. Ignoring the seething bodyguard next to her, Akari tells the kid to cut the fluff and get straight to the point. With pure elegance, the student picks up the teacup that just got dropped off at the table. Taking a sip, she states she's absolutely positive he approached her for a very specific reason. Flipping to a dead serious tone, the MC drops the bomb that his actual target is the operative who is currently hunting her down. Facing the tense silence from the duo, Kay asks if they already have a clue why there's a giant bull's on their backs. He points out the girl wouldn't be rolling with such a heavy-hitter bodyguard if she didn't know the risks. But the kid warns that her goon will never be able to protect her from the Chauka group, leaving Akari completely stunned. The MC explains that they are master assassins, and not even an entire Yakuza army could handle them. Shell-shocked by the highly classified info, the girl stares at the young guy, trying to wrap her head around what's happening. Leaning in over the table, she demands to know his true identity and exactly how much he knows about this whole mess. Totally unfazed by the heiress's pressure, the kid keeps his expression completely chill. Leaning back in his chair, Kay clarifies he's not exactly her ally, but he is definitely the enemy of her enemies. The young guy offers to wipe the Chauka group off the map, only asking for free room and board at her mansion for a bit as payment. Enraged by the disrespect, Katajiri slams the table, jumping up to curse the kid out. Shooting him a pitch-black glare, the MC coldly warns the bodyguard not to try anything stupid. An overwhelming, suffocating aura radiates from Kay, freezing the suit right in his tracks. Sweating buckets, the bodyguard falls dead silent, feeling the absolutely insane power gap between them. Unable to keep up the tough guy act, the man slumps back into his chair, completely defeated. Clocking the heavy vibe, Akari questions why she should even trust a single word out of his mouth. On cue, the kid brings up the brutal massacre that recently went down in Yokohama City. He reveals that the Chauka group was the one responsible for permanently retiring 3 Yakuza executives and their crews. Katajiri starts panicking, because that bloody incident hadn't even leaked to the TV news yet. Tipping his cap, Kay figures the media got gagged and correctly guesses that the victims caught lead from some seriously heavy hardware. He explains that the pro responsible for that massive cleanup was a garden operative who went by Dahlia. Utterly mind-blown, the security guard yells, demanding to know how the kid got his hands on such top-secret intel. Cutting to the chase, the MC slaps a silenced pistol right on the table and reveals he was the one who personally retired that assassin. He suggests the Yakuza use their dirty cops to confirm that the hardware is the exact match to the crime scenes. On top of that, the kid mentions he also took out the cleaners who were supposed to scrub the bodies and evidence. Super sus about the confession, Katajiri points a finger, accusing the young guy of being the real culprit behind the execs catching strays. Resting his face on his hand, Kay sarcastically asks if he'd really go through all this trouble if the girl was his actual target. The young heiress stares deep into the MC's eyes, analyzing him hard during the chat. Standing up from her chair, Akari decides to buy the kid's story, leaving her bodyguard in absolute despair. Wasting zero time, she orders Katajiri to pull the car around right now so they can head back to the estate. Swallowing his pride, the suit just obeys as the massive gates of the property swing open in the late afternoon. Once inside the mansion's insanely fancy office, the tension among the trio is still thick enough to cut with a knife. Katajiri heavily protests the crazy idea of letting such a shady dude just walk into their main hub. Right then, Kay pushes the door open and casually strolls in, complimenting how huge the mafia's headquarters is. Wandering around like he owns the place, the kid curiously asks if an antique vase out in the second-floor hallway is legit. Ticked off by the disrespect, the bodyguard yells, demanding to know who gave him a hall pass to wander the estate. Ignoring the tantrum, the MC loudly reviews that the place's security is actually pretty weak and totally badly spaced out. He had already mentally tagged every guard at the gates and every single patrol making rounds in the gardens. On top of that, the kid also mapped out the lone rent-a-cop responsible for watching the monitors in the control room. Stunned by the ridiculous accuracy of his tactical breakdown, Katajiri stutters, completely lost on how he figured all that out. Looking right at the young miss, Kay warns her that the Kevlar vest she's rocking under her clothes is basically useless against heavy artillery. The student is blown away, realizing the intruder picked up on every single one of those details in just a few minutes of being in the house. With a super threatening look, the MC doubles down that the enemies heading their way aren't your average street thugs. Meanwhile, deep inside the dark, damp tunnels of the city's sewer system, something quiet is on the move. A shadowy figure creeps through the dark with ultralight footsteps, sneaking toward their destination. Wielding a razor-sharp blade, the white-haired operative pushes forward, giving off pure, unhinged killer vibes. Back at the mansion, Kay drops a serious warning that the Yakuza needs to evacuate everyone from the house ASAP. Rejecting the whole idea, the bodyguard screams his head off, absolutely refusing to take orders from some random teenager. Ice cold and straight to the point, the MC declares that standard goons will just end up as cannon fodder against the funerary flowers and will only get in the way of the real fight. Grabbing the kid by the jacket, Katajiri tells him to quit playing games, reminding him their lives are literally on the line. Keeping her cool, Akari orders the guard to do exactly what the young guy suggested. With Major Boss energy, the heiress doubles down on the command, addressing the bodyguard by his name. Totally frustrated, the suit lets go of the MC and decides to bite the bullet and follow the boss's orders. Outside, the grunts question if they are seriously retreating, but Katajiri tells them all to shut their traps since it's a direct order. Now sitting on the living room floor, the security guard reports that he sent everyone packing just like he was told. Gripping his baton super tight, he warns that he's only letting the kid call the shots for the time being. Standing there totally relaxed, Kay says that's awesome and acts impressed that the heiress is trusting him this much. Closing her eyes, Akari admits she doesn't know jack about the funerary flowers, but totally gets that regular guards would be useless. Looking right at the kid, the student concludes that the best counter to an operative is another operative. Surprised she cracked the code, the MC asks what made her think he was in the business of clearing people out. With absolute ice in her veins, the young woman replies that she's seen a pro hitman up close before. She explains that the kid's eyes during that alley brawl earlier completely gave him away. Akari recalls that he had the exact same dead eyes as that other operative, locked entirely on the present without caring about anything else. Adjusting his cap, Kay feels a bit awkward realizing he totally blew his own cover. Gripping her chair, the student notes that his glare actually had one tiny difference. She mentions that the kid's eyes weren't completely filled with that mechanical emptiness that only cares about ending lives. Looking closely, Akari confesses she felt a burning heat coming from his expression. The girl clocked a super deep hatred mixed with a relentless drive to crush his goal. She describes that raw vibe as an almost obsessive passion. Because of that exact human flaw, the heiress declares she decided to bet all her chips on him. Looking down, the MC just listens to her breakdown in total silence. Hooked on the story, Kay asks about this mystery operative who had the exact same dead eyes he does. Akari flashes back to her dad and drops the bomb that she was front row when a woman permanently retired the leader of the Shido group. Suddenly turning dead serious, the kid demands to know exactly what kind of woman pulled it off. The young woman describes the hitwoman as a classy older lady who always kept a super gentle smile on her face. She remembers the lady just casually showing up in front of her dad like she was visiting an old pal. Suddenly, the memory shifts to the Yakuza guards getting absolutely shredded. Keeping that exact same polite smile, the older lady sliced the throats of every single bodyguard without batting an eye. Interrupting the backstory, the MC raises his hand and asks if, by any chance, this woman's knife had a very specific detail. The mental image of a red dagger pops up as he asks if the weapon was engraved with a spider lily. Confused, the student quickly asks how on earth he could know a detail that specific. With a furious glare, the kid internally confirms that the spider lily is definitely involved. He can barely believe that old hag is still doing wet work in the underworld after all this time. Time slowly ticks by as the group waits in pure silence inside the room. Feeling the vibe completely shift, Akari breaks the silence, warning that something is seriously wrong. On high alert, the MC asks what she noticed was off. Drops of red start hitting the wooden floorboards outside, while a voice calls out for a little boy. The old hitwoman makes a grand entrance in the courtyard and asks if her target is ready for a little chat. Badly beaten up, Katajiri tries to stay on his knees while dealing with some massive pain. Staring at the goon, the operative jokes that the mansion is looking a lot like a spider's web. She easily spotted the trails of booby traps scattered all over the dark yard. Giving off major threat vibes, the older lady demands the guards spill who else is hiding on the property. Pulling out her golden needles, she drops a super creepy warning that she might just start carving pieces off of him. Sweating bullets, the bodyguard can only groan in pain, completely unable to fight back. Getting right up in the wounded man's face, the hitwoman pushes to squeeze an answer out of him. Using the distraction, Akari charges in hot with a sword while her guard screams for her to stop. Throwing all her weight into it, the heiress swings a massive frontal strike trying to chop the intruder. Panting after the fast swing, the girl takes a deep breath and stays locked in a fighting stance. Panicking, Katajiri begs his boss to fall back, while she realizes he would never turn his reports in late without a good reason. In the hallway, the old hag effortlessly blocks the sword blade using nothing but her metal needles. The clash of the weapons creates massive tension, while the hitwoman holds back the strike like it's nothing. Frustrated by the perfect parry, the student clicks her tongue, fully realizing she's outmatched. Dripping with sadism, the older lady comments that this aggressive attitude actually saves her a ton of work. In a flash, a razor-sharp wire wraps around Katajira's neck, instantly making it spray red. The student's eyes go wide in total shock seeing her bodyguard getting choked out. Totally chill, the old operative confesses she remembers the young heiress very well. She brings up the scared little kitten, who was spying on everything through the closet crack back in the day. Staring at the young woman, the hitwoman praises how much she's grown and notes she inherited the exact same eyes as her late father. Glaring with pure hatred, Akari listens to the woman say in a completely sick way that those eyes look delicious. Totally unhinged, the operative flashes a bloodthirsty look in the dark. She unleashes a crazy fast combo of strikes, forcing Akari to aggressively backpedal just to survive. Pushing forward with heavy steps, the old lady keeps up the crushing pressure on her opponent. Backed into a corner alongside her wounded guard, the student realizes she has absolutely zero chance of winning. Suddenly, a heavy footstep echoes down the wooden hall, followed by a super tired sigh. Casually strolling up, Kay grumbles that the girl should start acting like someone who actually needs protecting. A dark, blood-red aura explodes out of the MC as he scopes out the whole situation. Feeling the absolutely crushing presence, the hitwoman gets hyped, realizing there was a literal monster hiding in the house. Ready to throw down, the old lady shifts into her combat stance, gripping her sharp tools. In a lightning-fast move, she chucks 3 golden needles that stick deep into the wooden floor. Radiating pure destructive energy, the operative jumps, winding up for a max power lethal strike. Showing literally zero concern, the kid keeps a totally blank face in front of the deadly threat. The MC casually walks down the hall, completely unbothered by the dust kicking up around him. Revealing a massive curved blade in his hand, Kay marches with purpose straight at the enemy. Watching the kid's terrifying power, the heiress and the guard gulp hard, completely mesmerized. Staring down the hallway standoff, the MC plants himself firmly between the old operative and her targets. The hitwoman quickly figures out he's no average brat and is packing some seriously practical martial arts skills. As a basic rule, those styles teach you to never take a defensive stance against a guy holding a knife. The reason for that is pretty simple in a real-world street fight scenario. It's physically impossible to block blades with bare hands without risking getting a major artery permanently sliced. So the fighter has to purposefully drop their guard to bait a tactical advantage. By doing that, he lures the enemy into trying a much more direct stab at the chest or neck. Capitalizing on the enemy's rush charge, all you gotta do is snap back with a devastating pinpoint counter. Chewing on that thought, the older lady sarcastically notes that knowing the theory is way different from pulling it off. Standing in front of the armed hag, Kay just waits there in the dark, looking completely wide open. Gripping her dagger, the operative is 100% sure he's just waiting for the perfect window to counter. To handle the situation like a pro, the kid tosses his own baseball cap high into the air. Caught off guard by the random move, the hitwoman's eye twitches, not getting the distraction at all. In the shadows, only the intense, menacing red glow of the kid's eyes pops out. Wasting absolutely zero time, the MC blitzes forward at a ridiculous speed, blasting straight toward the enemy. With a massive leap, he unleashes a lightning-fast overhead strike aimed to crush his opponent. Quickly, the old lady jumps back, dodging the hit while the kid lands hard on the floorboards. Looking at the woman, Kay sounds bummed, mentioning he really thought he could catch her slipping with that one. Blown away by the sheer disrespect, the operative thinks it's wild the brat actually had the guts to swing first. But she catches something way more dangerous when she breaks down the heavy attack she just dodged. Keeping her distance in the hall, the hitwoman realizes it's been a minute since she squared up against a Salat user. The kid had aimed perfectly for her common fibular nerve, a flawless trick to instantly paralyze a target's leg. Hyped that she clocked it so fast, the MC praises the old lady for figuring out his style right out of the gate. Ticked off by his snarky tone, she admits his whole vibe reminds her of a very annoying guy. The woman flashes back to when she stepped back from the front lines 20 years ago to become an instructor at the garden. In an old sparring session, a super sharp blade is expertly parried with a buttery smooth move. The younger version of the hitwoman preached that the technique didn't rely on raw muscle, but on creating flow. Showing it off, she taught her student to just let the enemy's weapon ride that natural current. Watching the lesson up close, the young guy just studied the teacher's moves in absolute silence. Getting impatient, the instructor warns she's gonna keep messing with him since words clearly aren't clicking. Completely pinned with a blade right at his throat, the young student claims he totally gets the core of the technique now. The instructor keeps the kid cornered under the heavy threat of her razor-sharp edge. With a completely demonic look in his eyes, the rookie excitedly begs the older lady to hurry up and teach him the next trick. That exact day, the woman realized in pure terror that she was dealing with a freak who could copy anything just by watching it once. First thing the next morning, she completely ditched the teaching gig and went back to active duty, reclaiming her title as a funerary flower. Staring at her blade stamped with the spider lily, she knew she had to sharpen her skills in actual life-or-death fights. Under the full moon, the hitwoman swore she would perfect her true fatal dance, no matter what it took. Snapping back to the present, the old hag rushes in fast, gripping her weapon and totally thirsty to clear the room. She sprints straight at the MC, kicking up dust all over the mansion's wooden hallway. Playing it cool, Kay drops a bombshell, casually admitting he actually didn't hate his old teacher all that much. Shocked by the oddly familiar comment, the operative hesitates for a split second, totally stalling her own charge. The kid recites her old golden rule about completely shattering the enemy's willpower before putting a hole in their chest. Hearing her very own words from back in the day, the hitwoman's eyes bug out in absolute shock. Completely mind-blown, she mumbles that what she's hearing should be literally impossible. Right at that second, the MC charges in, completely furious, radiating a terrifying red aura across the room. In a savage clash, the hitwoman throws all her weight into blocking the kid's massive attack. Slipping up for just a second, Kay catches a fast slash to the chest, and red sprays into the air. Watching from the sidelines, Akari and the guard stress out while the old lady internally cheers for landing a hit. Thanks to the insane force of the block, one of the knives goes flying and hits the floor, totally stained. Gripping the handle of her red weapon tight, the operative gets ready to keep the absolute carnage going. To dodge the MC's next swing, the old hag bends backward in a dodge that looks physically impossible. Super dialed into the fight, the kid tracks the enemy's freaky movements super closely. Pulling a crazy backflip, the woman lets out a yell, creating distance with ridiculous agility. She keeps spinning and backing up across the room until she's safely out of the kid's strike zone. Cocky K praises his enemy's speed, stating that the famous Ivy definitely hasn't lost her touch. All that insane gymnastics is only possible because she was born with hyper-loose joints and crazy flexible tendons. That extreme body flexibility has always been the absolute trademark of the operative known as Ivy in the underworld. Sticking a perfect landing on the wood floor, the older lady plants her feet, keeping the dagger ready for the next pounce. From across the hall, she finally accepts the crazy fact that she is staring down her permanently retired guildmate, Nightshade. Overflowing with confidence, the kid just confirms his old tag and asks what she's gonna do about it. The veteran hitwoman goes totally silent, trying to run the math on the absolute nonsense she just heard. Way past any normal logic, she tries to figure out how her expired student could possibly be piloting that kid's body. But her killer instincts are screaming at max volume, completely drowning out any rational questions in the middle of the brawl. Staring down the kid's monstrous silhouette glowing with that red aura, she decides to go all in on a huge gamble. Consumed by the rush, the old hag figures she finally found the white whale she's been hunting her whole life. Stomping hard on the floorboards, the operative launches herself for her ultimate finishing move. A storm of purple energy explodes as she brags that her technique is way more lethal now than back in the day. Cloaked in an overwhelming aura, the woman demands her opponent get a front row seat to her true dance. Without a second of hesitation, she rockets into a frontal assault, tearing through the hallway air with pure rage. Unbelievably, Kay steps up and swats the enemy's blade away, tanking the hit directly with his bare hands. The woman's killer energy completely swallows the kid as she unleashes Ivy's ultimate finisher, the dance of the end. Seeing that visual nightmare, Akari and the guard totally panic, having zero clue what kind of freaky move that is. Cool under pressure, the MC tells his crew not to fall for the weapon's crazy illusionary paths. 100 locked onto the tip of the actual blade, Kay uses his glowing bare fists to parry every single brutal slash of the combo. Blown away by the invisible speed of the clash, the peanut gallery's jaws drop watching the kid block it all by hand. From afar, the heiress watches the insane brawl, totally impressed by the defense but noting they aren't out of the woods yet. Deflecting every lightning-fast strike in the middle of the room, the MC uses his glowing hands to bat the lethal blade away. Annoyed at his own stats, Kay grumbles mentally that he would have never let the old hag even touch him if he was still in his original body. Suddenly, the kid's eyes pop open wide as he clocks a massive red flag right in the middle of the combo. Knowing his enemy, he remembers those red spider lilies are toxic and figures she obviously packed a dirty trick. Flashing a sadistic grin, the hitwoman tells him to chill, mentioning the poison only causes total muscle paralysis. An image of the deadly flower pops up, symbolizing the toxic effect that is quickly shutting down the MC's movements. Seizing the opening, the operative rushes in with crushing fury, claiming she'll be the one to finally punch his ticket. Hit by the toxin, the kid feels his muscles giving out fast and ends up stumbling backward, struggling hard. Eyes totally glazed with madness, the older lady spots the perfect gap and announces that his run is officially over. After dumping the absolute relentless fury of her famous dance of the end, the enemy gets ready to wrap up the gig. Charging up a massive wave of purple energy, the woman lines up one single, savage strike meant to finish it with zero chance of missing. With a massive burst of speed, she rockets toward the paralyzed kid to put a hole through his chest once and for all. A devastating impact blasts the MC dead on, sending a massive shockwave ripping through the entire mansion hallway. Flexing a look of pure unhinged triumph, the old hitwoman celebrates her epic W. In an instant counter, Kay totally borrows the momentum of the enemy's strike to perfectly deflect the lethal blade straight up. Completely mind-blown by the impossible Uno reverse, the old operative's eyes bug out and her jaw literally drops. Staring down the paralyzed hitwoman, the MC flashes his glowing red eyes, proving he's still an absolute beast. Totally in shock from the impossible turnaround, the old operative chokes up, feeling a crushing red aura looming right over her. In one savage move, the MC grabs the enemy by the throat with crazy force, sending red splashing everywhere. Giving her zero time to react, Kay slams the old hag right into the mansion's wooden floor, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The hitwoman coughs up red onto the floorboards, totally unable to process the kid's ridiculous speed and raw power. Thanks to the brutal slam, the lethal knife stamped with the spider lily slips right out of her hand and hits the deck. Moving insanely fast, the young guy snatches the toxic blade out of thin air before it even touches the floor. Without hesitating for even a microsecond, he buries the hitwoman's own tool straight into her chest. The old lady's eyes go wide as red drips from her mouth, finally realizing this is the end of the line. Looking down at the wrecked woman, the MC coldly comments that she clearly still can't even hold a candle to him. With a pitch-black glare, the kid promises to run it back with his old teacher when they bump into each other in the underworld. Taking the L like a champ, the operative peacefully accepts it and says she'll be waiting for him on the banks of the afterlife's river. Staring at the finished operative, he mutters that blooming in bright red is actually a pretty nice show. In the background, Akari and the guard watch the finale of the crazy fight, completely shell-shocked by what just went down. Out of nowhere, the MC loses his footing, and his legs start turning to jelly right in the middle of the room. Sweating buckets, he lets out a massive sigh, feeling the heavy toll of the brawl and the toxin wrecking his system. Freaking out at the sight, Katajiri asks if the kid is okay, and if he ended up catching the poison from the old hag's blade. Totally exhausted, Kay admits he's far from fine and only managed to stall the toxin by using his own breathing. That tactical breathing trick is totally standard for special ops to keep their cool when things go completely sideways. By doing that, the kid bottlenecked his blood flow to slow the poison, but the guard offers to call in a shady black market doc just in case. Adjusting his cap, the MC turns down the offer, explaining that anybody slinging poison obviously carries the cure on them. Patting down the enemy's pockets, he finds the antidote but quickly gets surprised by something else, prompting the suit to ask what's up. Holding up a gold pocket watch that's a dead ringer for the previous targets, the young guy reveals he just scored their next clue. Staring at the shiny item, he's absolutely positive he'll be able to crack the mystery behind it. The heiress totally gets how heavy the situation is and wonders out loud who exactly wants her out of the picture and why. A little while later, the night rolls on peacefully over the massive mafia estate, far away from all that absolute carnage. Inside the bedroom, the bodyguard stays on high alert, totally on edge while resting after the crazy showdown. A first aid kit sits wide open on the floor with bandages and meds scattered all over the place. The student super carefully patches up her loyal guard, wrapping his injured arm tight. Finishing the wrap-up job with a lot of care, the girl sighs in relief and says that should hold him over for now. Really stressed out, Katajiri asks if the boss is hurting anywhere and begs her to just drop this whole crazy mess. The security guy flashes back to the brutal hallway brawl and admits he finally understands just how insane the threat is. Replaying those ridiculous moves in his head, the man states with absolute certainty that the kid is not a normal human being. That level of crushing combat is in a completely different universe compared to the standard gang wars the Yakuza usually deals with. Squeezing his injured fist in total frustration, the suit deeply regrets not having the muscle to keep the young lady safe. Because of that, he warns that they aren't out of the woods and swears hell never let the late boss's kid get taken out by those freaks. Dropping to his knees, the bodyguard begs her to completely ditch the underworld and promises he'll run the gang's business solo. Hearing the desperate plea, the girl listens as the guard tells her to pack up and lay low somewhere totally safe until the heat dies down. Deep in thought, Akari chews on the idea of running away and mentally agrees that it's definitely the most logical play. Suddenly, the MC walks into the room carrying a laptop, and a spooked Katajiri asks when the heck he got there. Ignoring the guard's jump scare, the young guy just stares at them with a totally deadpan, unreadable face. Catching the heavy vibe, the heiress turns her head, fully locked in to hear what the operative has to say. Not sugarcoating a thing, Kay declares she's not just some innocent high schooler, reminding her that Boss Shido's legacy is literally in her veins. He breaks it down that the Mafia's violent destiny has been stamped on her since day one, whether she likes it or not. That dark inheritance is basically a relentless curse that will hunt her to the ends of the earth, no matter where she tries to hide. Ticked off by the kid's meddling, the security guard yells at him to stop acting like he knows the first thing about their boss's life. Completely ignoring the yelling, the MC lifts the laptop and calmly announces he just got the name of the guy who ordered the hit. The sudden info drop leaves the bodyguard totally stunned while the student processes the massive update. The young guy reveals he forwarded the pocket watch's data to his hacker buddy to crack it at max speed. Ice cold, he asks if they want to know the name of the scumbag who hired the funerary flowers to take out her old man. Standing her ground in the middle of the room, the heiress tells the kid to quit stalling and drop the truth already. Getting the green light, the MC spins the computer around, flashing the intel right on the glowing screen. The file shows a mugshot of the Shido Group's executive assistant, and Kei confirms they definitely know this Masaya Kuroki guy. The bodyguard totally short-circuits and yells in anger, thinking this has to be some sick, twisted joke. With a dark look, the student remembers that the snake was taken in by her dad and skyrocketed up the ranks super fast. The file points out the executive has a terrifying knack for managing the syndicate's shady underground operations. The guy's bread and butter was running massive illegal casinos and hosting literal underground deathmatches. Raking in absolute mountains of dirty cash for the crew, it was only a matter of time before he cemented himself as a top dog. Breaking down the guy's greed, Kay figures that just waiting around for a promotion wasn't gonna cut it for him. The MC explains that the backstabber teamed up with heavy hitters like Ivy and Dahlia, totally card-carrying members of the Garden. By linking up with them, Kuroki masterminded the total wipeout of the old boss and the veteran Yakuza shot-callers. To make sure there were zero loose ends blocking his path to the throne, he also put a bounty on the boss's daughter. The snake's absolute endgame is to hijack the mafia throne and unite the country's entire underworld strictly under his thumb. As a payout for the coup, the Shido Group would basically become a puppet gang operating completely under the Garden's massive shadow. With his eyes practically glowing, Kay declares his only reason for being there is to totally wreck the Assassin Guild's grand master plan. Lowering the laptop, the kid looks right at the student and firmly asks what her next move is gonna be. Poking the Yakuza heiress's pride, the MC asks if she's still planning to tuck her tail and run like a coward. Pushed to the edge, the girl puts her hands on the floor and silently starts getting up. Turning her face toward the window, Akari tells the young guy to stop talking so much trash. Freaking out over her choice, Katajiri yells desperately, begging the girl not to get dragged into this war. Thanking the guard for always having her back, she explains that bowing out and running without knowing who flatlined her parents would be absolutely pathetic. Radiating an epic blue aura, the heiress declares that pulling a weak move like that will never, ever be the Shido family way. Seeing his boss's completely unshakable resolve, the bodyguard grits his teeth, getting super emotional feeling the weight of her choice. Satisfied with the answer, the reincarnated pro notes that she's finally locked in completely. Packed with confidence, the student admits she honestly never planned on running away from the fight in the first place. Staring out at her massive luxury estate through the glass, she owns up to the fact that all this wealth wasn't exactly made legally. Akari reflects that she isn't totally innocent since her dad raised her in it, and she's ready to face the music later, but she completely refuses to hand the crew over to some snake. The MC cracks a tiny satisfied smirk seeing the girl's absolute iron will. Walking toward the door, the young guy tells her to just call him K, since she didn't even know his name yet. He clarifies it's not about a lack of trust, but points out it's just safer for both of them to keep the personal details strictly need to know. Holding out her hand, the heiress officially puts him on the payroll to act as the heavy artillery against Kuroki. She states that his payout for the gig will be exactly what he wanted, the total annihilation of the garden. Totally confident, the student guarantees Shell, but every single resource the Shido group has to back him up on this mission. Hearing the pitch, the young guy looks super interested and completely satisfied with the handshake deal. Kay thinks about the massive intel network spread across the underworld and the absolute mountain of cash the gang is sitting on. On top of that, he factors in the heavy-duty connections the mafia has tied up in politics and the corporate world. Laser-focused, the kid concludes there's literally no better backup out there to help him crush his enemies. With a solid handshake, the MC takes the deal, officially locking in their alliance once and for all. The night rolls on quietly over the glowing skyscrapers of the massive city. Inside a super ritzy hideout, Kuroki aggressively downs a drink, totally annoyed that he hasn't heard a peep from the old hitwoman. Right then, a dude in a hoodie strolls into the lounge, asking the executive what he thinks the holdup is. This mystery guy is Campanula, yet another seriously dangerous elite operative from the rival guild. Keeping a totally blank stare, he listens to his ally whine while looking completely bored out of his mind. The executive keeps pushing it, asking if his partner hasn't caught any rumors about why the older lady went MIA. 0% invested in the drama, the young guy sarcastically replies that it's not his job to play babysitter for some boomer. Campanula guesses the old hag is probably just throwing a fit over being assigned to take out a high schooler, poking fun at her massive ego. Out of nowhere, a piece of glass shatters across the room, completely jump-scaring the blonde kid mid-sentence. Furious, Kuroki tells the kid to shut his trap and assumes the woman probably got retired in some sewer just like Dahlia. The suit complains that the group gets hyped up as the strongest hitters on the planet, but it's looking like a whole lot of cap. He tries to keep running his mouth with the insults, but gets cut off incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, the operative teleports right behind the ally, pinning him hard against the wall and making him choke in pain. Sweating buckets, the backstabber is completely shook, having zero clue when the guy moved that incredibly fast. With his eyes glowing in the shadows, the young guy warns him not to get it twisted, they're only playing nice for the guild's endgame. Pressing his hardware right against the guy's neck, the blonde kid makes it crystal clear the funerary flowers aren't anyone's pawns. Absolutely terrified, Kuroki spits out apologies as fast as he can while the kid pulls the blade back, telling him to watch his mouth. With the lethal warning officially delivered, the operative turns his back and just casually walks across the room. Standing in the middle of the hideout, the blonde kid mutters coolly that everything is tracking perfectly fine the way it is. Panting hard from the near-death experience, the executive agrees that one schoolgirl surviving isn't gonna totally derail their master plan. He brags, reminding the kid that all the annoying veteran mafia bosses have already been successfully scrubbed. Staring at the lit-up city through the window, the traitor declares the gang is basically his now, and he's gonna use it to run the entire underworld. Flashing a totally unhinged grin, the young operative adds that it'll all go down in the name of the Grand Garden. 2 days fly by in a flash, and night falls over the super busy city streets. Inside a crazy luxurious underground casino, people are screaming and hyping up their bets at all the different tables. The chips are flying everywhere as gamblers risk absolute fortunes and double down in the illegal joint. Grinning billionaires flanked by models are flexing their massive bank accounts all over the gold-plated room. Right then, a mysterious girl strolls into the lobby looking like $1,000,000, immediately getting VIP treatment from the staff. Akari drops in looking totally flawless in a white dress, flanked closely by Kei and Katajiri, who are both rocking sharp suits. Keeping a super professional stance, the kid escorts the heiress while keeping his eyes peeled on everything moving in the room. Staring dead at the massive doors of the VIP section, the young guy thinks to himself that it's time for the traitor's grand finale. Radiating a totally menacing vibe, the MC decides this is step 1 to completely dismantling their enemies. The slot machines are flashing like crazy all over the floor while the super reckless plan officially kicks off. A casino dealer shuffles the deck like an absolute pro, setting up the next hand at the main table. All around, the rich crowd keeps tossing back drinks and having a blast, totally clueless about the massive threat that just walked in. The student walks through the floor with her head held high, pulling every single eye in the room. Some of the high rollers spot the girl and start whispering, totally mesmerized by her killer outfit. One of the gamblers thinks it's weird to see someone so young in the club and racks his brain trying to figure out where he knows her face from. Sweating bullets, Katajiri whispers nervously that the trio is sticking out way too much right in the middle of enemy turf. Flashing a cocky smirk, Kei promises the guard that all this hype is playing exactly into his master plan. A quick flashback shows the family's old training dojo during their super intense strategy meeting. Back then, the bodyguard heard the MC's game plan and was absolutely furious at how reckless it was. Slamming his hand hard on the wooden table, the guard cursed the kid out, saying the whole idea was completely unhinged. He flat out refused to let the heiress waltz right into the enemy base, but Kei doubled down that it was the only way to save the syndicate. Superheated, the suit fired back that if the goal was just to pack the traitor up, the kid should just go pull the hit solo. Keeping his cool, the MC coldly asked what the guy thought would actually happen to the mafia once the dust settled. Kei broke it down that icing the leaders would trigger a massive turf war for the throne that would rip the gang apart from the inside. Realizing the brutal logic of the kid's tactical breakdown, the guards swallowed hard, knowing they had literally no other play. The MC kept the strategy rolling, asking what the fallout would be if the sole heiress personally took the traitor's head. Dead serious, the student realized that making that move would broadcast to everyone exactly who the true boss is. Kei promised that if she finally stepped up to the front lines, the mafia's entire army would fall in line and follow her without a second thought. Dripping with attitude, the young girl cut the debate short, ordering the guard to get a high-end tailor on the phone right now. Overflowing with determination, she demanded they rush order the absolute perfect dress for the biggest night of her life. Watching his ally completely on the moment, the kid cracked an approving smile, really digging her guts. Snapping back to the present, the massive doors to the VIP lounge stay locked down and heavily guarded. Inside, one of the goons speedwalks up to the executive and whispers the red alert about the intruders. The snake's eyes go wide in shock when he finds out the young heiress is literally strolling around the main floor. Clicking his tongue in pure rage, the suit grips his glass super tight, totally frustrated that the girl is still breathing. Chilling on the sofa, the blonde operative thinks the whole thing is hilarious and asks if he should just head downstairs and ice her right now. The executive instantly shuts the offer down, warning that a hit would completely trash the rep of his super profitable casino. Trying to keep it together, he orders his guys to just treat the girl like any other regular VIP for the time being. Meanwhile, the vibe out on the luxurious betting floor is starting to get ridiculously tense and unpredictable. Trolling the guards at the restricted door, Katajiri mocks the fact that the coward Kuroki doesn't even have the spine to show his face. Scoping out the room, Kei figures they need to bait the target out onto the playing field first. With that game plan locked in, the heiress struts through the casino, completely owning the room. She casually mentions that dropping some cash at the tables sounds like a pretty fun idea. The student makes a beeline straight for one of the super exclusive blackjack tables. The trio posts up right at the main betting area, instantly pulling everyone's attention. Right away, the dealer steps in to cut her off, politely apologizing for stepping in. The guy professionally explains that the absolute minimum buy-in for this specific table is 1 million yen. Wasting zero time, the MC slams a heavy briefcase onto the table with a massive thud. The impact pops the case open, showing it completely stuffed to the brim with ultra-high-value chips. In seconds, massive towers of chips are stacked right in front of them. The young woman replies she doesn't care at all, since playing for pennies really isn't her style. Totally blown away by the mountain of cash, the worker apologizes profusely and gives her the green light to play. Setting up the hand, the guy shuffles the deck looking like a total seasoned pro. He deals the first card onto the felt, wishing the new high roller good luck. An entire hour completely vanishes in this super tense vibe, and the crowd around them starts sweating buckets. The dealer is visibly stressing out now, just watching the insane run unfold. Meanwhile, Akari stays totally ice-cold, keeping her eyes absolutely glued to her cards. The girl's chip stack has grown into a literal mountain, and a massive crowd has circled up just to watch the show. Dripping sweat, the employee announces that all bets are officially closed. The student just stares down the table, waiting for the final result of the crazy hand. Panic totally takes over the dealer, who starts breathing super heavy and looking desperate. With his hands completely shaking, he flips the cards over, showing the totals to the whole table. Pulling one last card from the shoe, the guy prays to the gambling gods to somehow flip the script. He reveals the final card from the deck, looking absolutely horrified at the outcome. The stress is so intense that the pro's hands completely give out on him. The house goes bust over the point limit, officially locking in an unavoidable L for the casino. In total shock, the worker announces the VIPs win, and the crowd completely loses their minds over her insane streak. The bodyguard assumes she has to be cheating her system, while Kay just watches the whole thing with a dark smirk. The reality is that blackjack isn't just about dumb luck, there's always the legendary trick of counting cards. That famous strategy crunches the odds of the table by keeping track of every single card that hits the felt. The geniuses who actually master that count can clean out massive casinos in Las Vegas for millions. But what the kid is pulling off right now goes way beyond any old casino myth. With an absolute supercomputer for a brain, the operative memorizes every single card the microsecond it drops. With every new card flipped, his brain crunches the data in literal milliseconds. He instantly recalibrates the best possible play and gives super subtle taps on his watch. The glare on the watch face bounces the exact play over to his partner using tiny flashes of light. For a guy who's hardwired to memorize complex escape routes and erratic moving targets. Plus doing mid-air math for ammo and wind direction during an active shootout, tracking a deck of cards is a total joke. The MC considers this high-speed mental gymnastics, basically just a relaxing walk in the park. Back at the felt, the heiress pushes an absolute mountain of chips straight into the middle of the table. Cocky as ever, she announces the party's just getting started and tells the dealer to hit her again. The employee completely freezes in pure terror looking at that absolutely unhinged bet. His legs literally shake, knowing that if he bleeds any more cash, upper management is gonna end him. Suddenly, a super snarky voice echoes across the room, complaining that the princess really should have given a heads up about her visit. Calmly turning her head, the girl recognizes the guy and drops a comment that it's been a hot minute since they last saw each other. Walking up with his goons, Kuroki jokes that he would have rolled out the red carpet if he knew she was dropping by. The snake flashes a super fake smile while desperately trying to keep the vibe under control in his own club. Totally over the act, the heiress demands the suit spare her the cheap Hollywood performance. The executive looks away and catches a glimpse of the absolutely ridiculous pile of chips sitting on the table. Slow clapping, he praises the girl's lucky streak and offers to cash her out right this second if she just walks away. Pulling a fat stack of cash out of his jacket, he offers it up like some cheap consolation prize. Dripping with disrespect, the guy suggests she take the change and go buy some cute trinkets for her friends. Completely ignoring the bribes, the young girl claps back, noting that the rat hiding in her dad's castle got pretty fat. That direct roast completely shatters the trader's ego, and he can't even hide the vein popping on his forehead. With a death glare, Akari asks if he's just playing dress-up as king while hiding behind his little florist buddies. Dropping the Assassin Guild's name out loud makes the executive's face instantly go pitch black with rage. All around them, the random high rollers look super confused, having absolutely zero clue what any of that means. Totally losing his cool, Kuroki drops a dead serious threat, warning the princess to stop playing with matches before she gets burned. Hearing the lethal warning, the student just agrees with him and elegantly stands up from her seat. With major attitude, she completely shuts down the game, stating she was already bored of playing silly card games anyway. Keeping her totally boss energy, the girl decides she'd rather test out the club's actual main attraction. Absolute silence completely takes over as the trader processes the heavy weight of what she just asked for. Narrowing his eyes, the executive figures out she's definitely talking about the infamous Crimson Cage. That deadly attraction is a completely no-rules underground fighting pit located right under the casino floor. Kuroki breaks down the rules where they each drop a fighter in the ring and place their own personal stakes on the match. Without a second thought, Akari wagers every single asset she inherited from the mafia boss, plus her own life. In exchange, she demands the suit put the deed to this entire massive casino on the line. The totally unhinged bet shocks the whole room, since this bloody brawl is basically going to decide the gang's entire future. Feeling the heat, the suit sweats bullets, realizing his rep will be completely trashed if he backs out now. Jumping on his hesitation, the student flashes a mocking smirk and asks if he's gonna chicken out. That roast does the trick, and the trader grits his teeth super hard, swallowing his rage like a bitter pill. Totally boxed in, the guy glares at the young girl and says this little game actually sounds like a blast. Getting right up in the heiress's face, the executive accepts the challenge, calling her an annoying little brat. Throughout the whole stare-down, the MC just stays completely quiet, keeping a close eye on his partner's back. Seeing the enemy swallow the bait hook, line, and sinker, Kay flashes a dark grin, absolutely loving how this played out. The massive doors to the casino's VIP lounge stay sealed tight, waiting for the lethal showdown to pop off. Inside, the blonde operative watches the whole circus on massive monitors, with his feet kicked up on the desk. The security feeds broadcast a live shot of Kuroki having his stare-down with Akari right in the middle of the room. Kay keeps a dead serious, totally focused look, tracking every single twitch the enemy makes. Watching the drama unfold on the screens, Campanula cracks a sadistic grin, thinking the whole mess is pretty entertaining. Finally, the double doors of the lounge swing wide open, revealing the gateway down to the underground pit. A dark, super creepy hallway waits to funnel the challengers straight down to the illegal ring. The crowd in the stands goes absolutely feral, screaming their lungs out as the bloody main event kicks off. The floodlights snap on all at once, totally lighting up the glass-walled combat cage. Super hyped up, the announcer officially welcomes the crowd to the dreaded Crimson Cage. Gripping the mic, he hypes up that they managed to book an ultra-special, last-minute brawl to cap off the night. The host points right at the ring and guarantees the lucky fans in the house picked the absolute best night to show up. Wasting zero time, he introduces the brawler posted up in the red corner of the pit. A massive, completely jacked bald dude warms up by smashing his fists together, looking like an absolute tank. The announcer screams into the mic, introducing the undefeated champ that everyone calls the Crusher, Takeshi Kinju. Over in the other corner, Kei calmly strolls toward the center of the ring, still rocking his sharp suit. The host reveals the challenger has 0 fight record and is just some mystery guy going by the name K. Up in the stands, the gamblers crack up laughing, roasting the scrawny kid in the suit and betting he won't last 60 seconds. The announcer adds that the champ is a master in full-contact karate and has literally put every past opponent in the ICU. Stressing out over the massive size difference, Katajiri asks the heiress if the young guy can actually survive this. He admits he knows the kid packs ridiculous power, but he's still super sketchy about the matchup. Sighing with his eyes closed, the MC mutters to himself that he's definitely not your average cage fighter. The ref lays down the law, 0 weapons allowed, but absolutely anything else goes. Staring down the kid in the suit, the giant flashes a creepy, overly confident smile. Kay just stands there in his starting stance, showing 0 emotion while staring up at a literal mountain of muscle. With everything set, the host throws his hand up and screams for the two of them to get it on. Instantly, the giant charges, throwing a totally devastating haymaker straight at the kid's face. The boy just casually tilts his head, letting the massive punch breeze right past him. Ticked off by the dodge, Kinju roars, demanding to know what the suit's deal is. He unleashes an absolute flurry of heavy punches, while shouting that the punk can't even lift a finger to fight back. The crowd goes wild, screaming for the meathead to completely crush the kid and permanently retire him. In the middle of the cage, the champ's lightning-fast strikes keep smothering the young guy non-stop. Watching from the VIP box with Akari, Kuroki puffs his cigarette and totally disagrees with the crowd's hot takes. The snake analyzes the brawl like a pro and notices the kid is perfectly deflecting the core of every single attack. With crazy agility, Kei uses his arms to smoothly redirect the champ's heavy haymakers into thin air. Kuroki notes, looking super impressed, that the kid hasn't moved a single inch from where he started. Blowing out smoke, he turns to the student and asks if she thinks this little magic trick is cute. The mafia heiress just listens to the enemy's trash talk with an absolutely stone-cold expression. The executive warns the princess that standard dojo martial arts don't mean jack in the underworld. Down in the pit, the MC keeps perfectly blocking the absolute downpour of relentless hits from the bald guy. Kuroki breaks it down that in a place with 0 rules, a match isn't decided by some cheap parlor tricks. Betting everything on his guy, he declares that the only thing that matters here is pure, unadulterated violence. Out of nowhere, the suit reaches over and aggressively grabs the girl's hand. Chuckling, the snake warns her that once this match wraps up, he's gonna have to teach her a lesson too. Flashing a totally creepy look, the man sadistically states that a pet needs to learn some discipline. Kuroki keeps his grip on the student's hand, laughing at how pathetic the whole situation is. Out of the blue, the girl mutters in a completely dead voice, calling his whole monologue a complete joke. With her eyes overflowing with pure hate, Akari says it's disgusting he's trying to put a leash on her when he's just a lapdog for the garden. That insult lands a critical hit, and the traitor's smirk vanishes, replaced by a face entirely twisted with rage. He instantly drops the young woman's hand and viciously crushes his own cigarette into the ashtray. Seeing red from the roast, the executive screams at his fighter to stop playing with his food and finish it. The giant flinches at his boss's screaming, totally confused as to why everyone is in such a rush. Capitalizing on that micro-distraction, Kay steps in silently, planting his foot hard on the arena mat. The meathead suddenly starts panting heavily, hit by a totally random wave of exhaustion. Right in front of him, the kid in the suit doesn't have a single scratch on him and just stares back with a chill smile. The champ is completely lost, wondering why he's the only one gassing out when he's been the one throwing all the punches. Mocking the guy's stamina drop, the MC sarcastically asks if the big guy is too tired to even lift a finger now. Kinja's eyes bug out in shock as the opponent seemingly teleports right into his personal space. Moving at warp speed, Kay lands an absolutely brutal strike dead center on the giant's chest. Thanks to the totally crushing impact, the mountain of muscle gets launched backward, losing his footing completely. The heavy thud kicks up a dust cloud in the ring, and the whole crowd just stares at the massive body collapsed on the mat. The gambler's jaws drop to the floor, totally frozen and trying to process what the heck just went down. One of the billionaires gulps hard, sweating bullets over the invincible champ getting dropped that fast. The ref rushes over to the body and starts desperately counting him out. Massaging his own neck, Kay thinks to himself that step one to taking down a beast is knocking out its fangs. Suddenly, both the announcer and the MC catch a weird noise coming from the downed fighter. Kinju starts twitching weirdly on the mat, letting out some seriously gross sounds. The kid in the suit steps back a bit, watching the whole freak show on high alert. Right then, a dude in a hoodie pops out of nowhere, stomping hard on the grounded giant's back. The ref freaks out over the random stage crasher, having absolutely no idea where the guy came from. Casually strolling through the ring, Campanula ignores security and drops a super dark, lethal vibe. The casino staff just stare at the mess, completely clueless on how to handle the situation. Without blinking, the blonde operative viciously attacks all the suits around him with zero hesitation. He drops a totally devastating kick right on a guard's face, instantly knocking him out cold. Overflowing with killer intent, the hitman steps over the unconscious bodies, getting ready for a total bloodbath. Looking at the snoozing guards on the floor, Kay jokes that the casino doesn't seem to treat its guests very well. Giving the blonde kid a serious look, he immediately asks what the trespasser thinks he's trying to pull here. Campanula just casually mentions he put the guards to sleep, and asks to be credited as the guy who drops the curtain on this little play. The young operative takes a step forward, getting ready for the brawl that's about to pop off. He excuses himself by saying there's no way they can let a bunch of amateur actors ruin the perfectly planned script. Confused by the weird theater talk, the MC repeats the word script, trying to decode what the guy means. The blonde clarifies that if the suit wins this match, all the hard work they've put in so far gets flushed straight down the drain. Holding their ground in the center of the cage, the two lock eyes, ready to throw hands. Dripping with ego, the operative declares he's gonna do whatever it takes to make sure this match gets deleted from history. He turns his head and asks Kuroki directly if the traitor is cool with that game plan. Watching from the VIP box, the executive flashes a smug grin and says he's totally leaving the cleanup to his partner. Wasting absolutely zero time, the kid in the hoodie drops a sarcastic apology while blitzing forward. Using the momentum, he launches a totally devastating kick aimed right at the opponent's neck. The MC dodges the lethal shot, instantly recognizing a technique specifically designed to snap the carotid artery. Checking out the suit's moves, Campanula asks what kind of martial arts style he's actually rolling with. The fighting style in question is Salat, an incredibly lethal traditional martial art straight out of Southeast Asia. Known for totally crushing it in close-quarters combat, there are literally hundreds of different branches of it all over the globe. The variations range from super strict forms focused entirely on hand-to-hand brawling, to absolutely savage styles entirely focused on knife combat and snapping joints. Totally dialed in on his target, the MC keeps his eyes glued, waiting for the next strike to drop. He settles into his fighting stance, cranking up the pressure in the entire arena. The blonde operative studies the enemy's form, breaking down every single detail like a hawk. In a burst of speed, Kay throws a lightning-fast punch that ends up getting totally blocked like it was nothing. Campanula jumps back, literally leaving an afterimage because his movement speed is so completely broken. Without missing a beat, the operative snaps back with a heavy counter, totally catching the suit off guard. The MC barely grazes the hit, but it's enough to leave a thin red line dripping down his cheek. Katagiri watches in pure panic, remembering the kid tanked the giant's hits like it was Tuesday, but just got shoved back with one hand. Up in the box, Akari watches the fight unfold, keeping her face totally unreadable and staying dead silent. Doing the math on the enemy's power level, Kei concludes that this kid's reaction time and sheer strength are definitely not human. Wiping the red off his mouth, he stares the blonde down and connects a massive dot about his opponent. Straight up, the suit asks if the kid is also running with the infamous Funerary Flowers crew. The operative cracks a huge grin and jokes that rumors really do fly fast around here. With zero filter, he formally introduces himself as Campanula, the dreaded flower of gratitude. Putting his hands together in a totally sarcastic prayer, the hitman thanks him for giving him a fun game at the end of a super boring shift. Crouched on the arena floor, the MC lets out a little chuckle, thinking the whole setup is pretty funny. He wipes his scraped face and promises that the pleasure of meeting is actually 100% his. With his eyes glowing a super creepy shade, Kei warns that since the enemy is in the guild, he can go all out and totally crush him without holding back. The reincarnated pro's mind flashes back to all the brutal brawls he had with the other disposable pawns from that exact same crew. Seeing the opponent's totally menacing stance, Kuroki starts sweating bullets, feeling the tension in the ring spike hard. Up in the VIP section, the mafia heiress and her loyal guard watch the showdown, hanging on to every single word they say. Standing up like it's no big deal, the MC honestly admits he really doesn't want to eat another one of those palm strikes. On the flip side, the blonde kid is still totally chilling, flexing a completely arrogant grin. Cracking his neck, the suit mentally maps out that his first play needs to be downloading the enemy's fighting style. Dead silence drops over the entire pit, and the operative sadistically jokes that the stage got real quiet all of a sudden. Trolling his opponent, he asks if the amateur actor ran out of lines and warns that if the suit isn't gonna swing first, then he's gonna go ahead and take the lead to end this problem once and for all. The MC gets spooked by the sudden burst of movement and clocks just how insanely fast the kid really is. In less than a second, the operative throws a massive punch aimed straight at the guy's face. Moving with crazy agility, Kei manages to dodge the hit by spinning his body and sliding out of the danger zone. Maxing out his focus, the suit dials in entirely on reading the enemy's next combo. The blonde unleashes an absolute hurricane of heavy punches, leaving the MC wondering what the heck is wrong with those swings. Dodging the endless barrage, he notices that even though they're crazy fast, the path of the strikes is ridiculously easy to predict. Backing away from a super aggressive kick, the MC also catches that the wind pressure coming off the hits is super obvious. Mentally comparing it to the old hitwoman's flawless technique, he figures the blonde's attacks are just raw, unga-bunga violence. Campanula doesn't let up for a second, rushing in again and throwing another totally brutal punch with everything he's got. Seeing the massive gap in the attack pattern, the kid in the suit dodges and nails the opponent's arm dead on. The hooded operative's eyes go wide in total shock as his combo gets abruptly cancelled like that. With the perfect parry locked in, Kei gets ready to completely flip the script right in the middle of the ring. Watching from the sidelines, Katagiri completely loses it, cheering that the mafia's guard dog finally landed a clean hit. Jumping back to make some space, Campanula checks the damage and realizes the suit perfectly tagged his arm's radial nerve. Smiling at the discovery, the operative figures that's exactly how the giant meathead from earlier got his arm totally wrecked. The move looks an awful lot like gunting, a trick that shuts down limbs by striking them like they're getting caught between scissors. Super hyped, the blonde notices the suit used his wrist bone to deliver a pinpoint strike and asks if that's the legendary method of the end. The MC flashes a snarky smile, asking if the enemy actually knows the technique and joking about whether it's trending nowadays. That lethal art is a literal assassination school born in Indonesia, totally banned and supposedly completely buried in the history books. Kaki K says it's obviously not a mainstream style, considering the last guy who knew it bit the dust 11 years ago. Totally ignoring the history lesson, Campanula lets out a war cry and charges back in, throwing the kitchen sink at his enemy. The young operative launches a hyperspeed punch, desperately trying to take back the momentum in the close-quarters brawl. With absolute ease, the MC swats the hit away using the back of his hand, completely throwing off its path. The kid in the hoodie is absolutely stunned seeing his punch get completely denied with zero effort. But instead of getting scared, the blonde cracks an unhinged smile, calling the enemy interesting and begging to see more. Kay clicks his tongue, super annoyed, and just keeps parrying the crazy rush that absolutely refuses to stop. The operative cranks up the heat, unloading a totally crushing combo that forces the suit to keep backing up. Even while getting suffocated by the storm of angry punches, the MC stands his ground, expertly dodging everything thrown at him. Totally frustrated by the whole mess, Campanula yells that it makes zero sense and can't figure out how the target is slipping away so easily. To perfectly predict the attacks, the MC reads the enemy's wind-up tells by watching his center of gravity and eye movements. With that razor-sharp read, he can completely call out the next move before the guy even twitches. Without that broken skill, it'd be literally impossible to survive a brawl where punches land in fractions of a second. However, the blonde operative gets super annoyed realizing the suit is only dodging after the punches are already in motion. Utterly mind-blown, the bad guy figures out that this dude's reaction time is completely off the charts for a normal human. Jumping on the opening, Kay dodges a savage rush by pulling a super agile backflip. While he's still floating in midair, the kid notices a crazy fast blur rocketing straight at him. Wasting zero time, Campanula fires off a totally crushing palm strike right at the defenseless opponent. Taking the massive hit, the MC gets launched across the room, skidding hard across the arena floor. Panicking at the visual, Katagiri screams his ally's name, terrified that he just watched the kid get packed up. Watching from the VIP suite, the Mafia heiress is absolutely stunned by the ridiculous power of the enemy's attack. Right then, the traitor executive throws his arm out in front of the girl to block her view. Dripping with arrogance, Kuroki brags that this is what true violence looks like and guarantees he's walking away with the W. Letting out a creepy laugh, the bad guy trolls her, saying that in the underworld, the winner literally takes home the whole pot. Sitting on the mat, the MC just glares up at the VIP box and comments that it takes some serious nerve to act like such a massive coward. The traitor threatens the young girl, warning that after the match, he's gonna collect a toll way higher than what they bet. Completely ignoring the trash talk, the kid in the suit casually gets back on his feet, planting his shoes on the arena floor. Not showing a single ounce of pain, he drops right back into his fighting stance, locking eyes with the enemy across the ring. Dusting off his clothes, Kay breaks down the exchange and announces he figured out exactly what the enemy's gimmick is. Totally chill, the reincarnated pro just mumbles to himself, finally decoding the secret behind all that freaky power. Across the cage, the hooded operative cracks a smug smile, waiting for his opponent to spill the beans. Super hyped, Campanula throws his hands up and cheers that the suit nailed it by calling him special. The operative drops the lore that his nervous system got supercharged using some totally bizarre stem cell transplants. That freaky body mod thickened his axons, making his nerves ridiculously tanky against any kind of damage. Watching him closely, the MC puts it together that the guy's superhuman reaction time comes entirely from those hacked nerves. The kid breaks down that average humans take 0.2 seconds to react to something, no matter how much they train. Going full troll mode, the bad guy brags that he can react in 0.002 seconds, basically moving like a literal cat. Thanks to that completely broken biological cheat code, the blonde's perception of time runs in super slow motion. To the operative, it looks like the entire world is moving at a snail's pace, playing out frame by frame right in front of him. Because of that, Kay figures out that the crushing palm strike is also just running off that same busted proprioception trick. Up in the box, the executive and the heiress listen to the whole biology lesson about reading nervous systems in total silence. Resting his chin on his hands, the traitor watches the cage, thinking the science class is actually pretty interesting. Down in the ring, the blonde claims he can feel every single muscle in his body perfectly, letting him focus all his power into one spot. Sarcastically, he tries to remember the name of the Chinese technique Fa Jin, bragging that pulling it off is as easy as breathing. The operative totally roasts his guildmates, saying they train until they drop but are still stuck with totally average human limits. To the genetically modded kid, watching those veteran boomers try so hard is honestly just a pathetic joke. Rolling with the enemy's logic, Kay cracks a smile and asks if those freaky eyes don't give him a massive headache during regular day-to-day stuff. The random question about his daily routine completely catches the young operative off guard. The suit asks how he even watches movies, since the normal frame rate must look like a super choppy kid's flipbook to him. His face instantly dropping, the bad guy angrily admits that the vision glitch is actually incredibly annoying. Standing totally chill in the middle of the arena, the MC announces that if this is the enemy's entire bag of tricks, playtime is officially over. Cracking his neck to the side, the reincarnated pro agrees it's finally time to shut this brawl down for good. Overflowing with a terrifying red aura, the kid promises to drop an absolutely unforgettable season finale for his opponent. Taking the bait, Campanula unleashes a massive wave of purple energy, warning that he's gonna love watching his own highlight reel. The heavy tension completely swallows the underground club as the two titans lock eyes, getting ready for the final clash. Glued to the glass cage, the crowd upstairs doesn't even blink, totally hyped for the next move. Staring holes into his target, Kay is fully aware that the blonde's reflexes are completely broken. He knows for a fact that throwing any standard direct attack will just get effortlessly cancelled out by the enemy's speed. Out of options, the kid in the suit realizes there's literally only one way he's walking out of here with the W. The perfect play is to slip in a lethal counterattack at the exact microsecond the opponent throws a punch. But the hooded bad guy flashes a sadistic smile, totally convinced he just read his opponent like an open book. The operative assumes the suit got too cocky after managing to land that one lucky nerve block on his arm earlier. With a totally unhinged look, Campanula mentally confesses he took that hit on purpose just to give the guy some fake hope. Flexing his absolute superiority, the blonde is 100% sure he can react even to the reincarnated pro's counters. Exploding into motion, he charges aggressively, throwing totally massive punches aimed right at the suit's chest. Caught off guard by the sheer speed, the kid in the suit closes his eyes, bracing for the heavy impact rocking his body. Thinking it's a total cakewalk, the operative believes any trick the rival pulls is already factored into his flawless script. Slowly stalking around the ring, the bad guy savors the thought of totally crushing the last bit of hope out of his weak prey. Lining up the final shot, the hooded operative gets ready to launch his absolute most lethal move straight at the target. Breathing heavy, the MC drops his head, looking totally backed into a corner by the biological freak in front of him. Sprinting at max speed, the blonde screams, daring the enemy to try and counter the punch, swearing it'll be game over. With absolute ice in his veins, Kay looks up, watching the enemy's blind rage funnel him right into a totally fatal trap. Instantly, the operative's blue eyes bug out in pure confusion when he realizes the suit hasn't moved a single inch. Frozen in midair, Campanula does the math and realizes that from this close, it's physically impossible for the target to throw a counter. Believing in his flawless victory, the guild kid mentally calls it a wrap, thinking the fight is done. But with an insanely subtle twitch, the MC slides his body just a hair to the side, perfectly dodging the path of the fatal punch. A weird crack echoes through the ring and the bad guy lets out a desperate groan, feeling something go horribly wrong. The truth is, the reincarnated pro's flawless counter had already been quietly planted, totally bypassing the enemy's super reflexes. Turns out, the young guy's busted reaction speed only works against threats he can actually pick up on visually. During that earlier palm strike that sent him flying, Kay used that microscopic window in midair to make his move. In that suspended fraction of a second, the kid in the suit quietly positioned his hand without setting off any of the target's alarms. With absolutely surgical precision, the tip of his finger lightly tapped the dead center of the operative's forehead. That totally creepy touch applied a super ancient assassination technique from the Indonesian art, famously known as the poison needle. The trick works by blasting the trigeminal nerve in the face with max force, causing a fatal lag in the victim's senses. Frozen in the middle of the arena, Campanula's eyes go wide as he feels his own body glitch out, finally realizing his run is over. Giving off a super dark, boss-level aura, the MC trolls him, asking how he liked the production value of the series finale. Right after, the blonde operative's body gets violently launched backward by the totally invisible impact. Completely unable to defend himself, the kid in the hoodie goes flying out of control through the air. The crash is so brutal that he skids wildly across the floor of the cage. Dealing with absolutely agonizing pain, the operative coughs up a ton of red while trying to process what just happened. Thanks to the ridiculous force of the launch, Campanula slams back first into the arena's glass wall, completely shattering it. Watching the whole thing from upstairs, the Mafia heiress and Katagiri are absolutely shook by the crazy plot twist. Sprawled out on the floor in the smoke, the bad guy stutters desperately, begging to know what the rival just did to him. Totally relaxed in the center of the ring, Kay coldly states that he barely even touched him. The fact is, the kid wasn't capping at all. He literally never threw a single direct punch. In that exact millisecond, the reincarnated pro locked his legs and pelvis, flexing every single muscle in his spine and back all at once. With his stance totally anchored, he pushed his shoulders and forearms forward, basically turning himself into a human battering ram. The science works just like a weightlifter pressing a bar over their head, locking their entire body to handle the weight. For that tiny window, the athlete becomes a totally unbreakable pillar, and the young suit pulled off the exact same move. Rooting his feet into the arena mat, Kay turned into an immovable spike driven deep into the ground and just stood there. Basically, the MC tanked the entire force of the attack, using the tip of that invisible spike he built with his stance. Thanks to physics, the trapped energy had nowhere else to go and bounced right back into the blonde's body. The fatal result was basically like Campanula threw himself at max speed straight into a spear stuck in the ground. That absolutely broken technique is the peak of Chinese martial arts, totally famous for borrowing the enemy's own power to strike back. After that massive collision, the kid in the suit just watches his wrecked opponent sitting in the corner of the cage. Pinned against the broken glass, the operative finally clicks that the enemy literally used his own stats against him. The hitman's brain catches up and realizes all that yapping about biological nerves earlier was a total setup. Keeping it real, Kay admits he was just stalling the bad guy to kill time until the poison hit max level. Holding the L, the hooded kid praises the 200 IQ play and admits he never thought anyone could actually shred his perfect script. Leaking a lot of red, he casually drops that a hitman always ends up on the chopping block eventually anyway. Staring up at the club ceiling, the young guy knows that rocking the title of Campanula meant his time to check out was gonna come sooner or later. Right then, the operative coughs up another massive puddle of red and genuinely thanks his opponent. The bad guy confesses that he always thought the underworld was just incredibly boring and totally dead inside. Watching imaginary petals fall across the cage, he mutters that thanks to the suit, life actually felt a little fun right at the end. With that one final chill thought, the genetically modded operative gives in to his massive injuries and flatlines on the floor. Turning his back to the body, the reincarnated pro tells the kid to log off and sleep as peacefully as he can. Out of nowhere, a desperate scream rips through the casino calling for the trader executive, putting Kay on high alert instantly. Upstairs, Katagiri is absolutely terrified staring at a completely unthinkable scene. Using the fight as a distraction, Kuroki crept up and brutally grabbed the mafia heiress from behind. Sweating bullets out of pure desperation, the coward points a piece directly at Akari's head in front of the entire club. Seeing his partner get taken hostage, the MC radiates an aura of absolute pure hatred, completely ready to start a real bloodbath.